the second year in a row we've had a steam engine here. Last year the borough was 200 years old, and for the big celebrations, Allentown Auburn brought in a little 040 saddle tanker, which is a little smaller than this one. This is an 06, and so far, and last year was very well received, and as far as I can tell, there's lots of people enjoying it this year and coming out for a train ride. The rail line original name was the Allentown Auburn Railroad. Well, everything lay dormant up until after the Civil War. Now, during this period of time, the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad, which later became known as the Reading Railroad, purchased the assets of the Allentown and Auburn Railroad. But they didn't do anything with it. The Civil War came and went, and the business people of Kutztown wanted to have rail service, and they petitioned the Philadelphia and Reading Railroad to get to Kutztown from Topton. So they laid track from Topton to Kutztown, and on January 10th, 1870, the first trains railed in here to the Kutztown train station. That's when it opened. It's been continuously operated ever since, under different ownerships and railroad companies. It was a Reading Company operation up until April 1st, 1976, which is when the bankrupt Reading Railroad was merged into the Conrail system. Now, the interesting thing about during the when the Reading Railroad owned it was it officially had the name of the Allentown Auburn Railroad up until 1945, when it was actually merged into the Reading system then. Okay? Conrail took over operations of the line, but PennDOT became the owner of the line. Okay? After a few years, and I believe it was 1983, Conrail did not want to operate this branch, or the Colebrookdale branch, or the Perkiomen branch. They didn't want to operate it because there wasn't enough business to make them happy. There was enough business for shoreline operators, but not for big boys like Conrail. So they pulled out, and PennDOT sought operators, and the first new operator was a little railroad called Anthracite Railway, which was an interesting name for a railroad whose commodity it was going to haul, anthracite coal.
Right.
They operated for about 5 years, and then the Blue Mountain and Reading Railroad, which is today the Reading and Northern, they took over the branch operations, and they had it up until about, I believe it was 93, somewhere in there, 94. And their line went up for bids then, and then the East Penn Railway took it over, a brand new railroad called the East Penn Railway. Now, East Penn changed their name 3 times and ownership 3 times, but this whole time, PennDOT was the actual owner of the line up until the year 2000.
Oh, okay.
In the year 2000, PennDOT didn't want to own any branch lines, so what they did was they put the branches up for bid, and the borough of Kutztown purchased the railroad from Kutztown to Topton. Berks County purchased the Colebrookdale line, and East Penn Railways actually purchased the Perkiomen line from Emmaus to Pennsburg. Well, the reason the borough of Kutztown purchased the railroad was not because they wanted to have a railroad. But if you look over my right shoulder here, you see a 69K electric line coming into town along the right-of-way of the railroad. The borough used to pay user fees to whoever owned the railroad to use that right-of-way. The borough has its own electric company, and if you live in the borough of Kutztown or do business here, you must purchase your electricity from the borough of Kutztown. You can't buy it from MedEd, you can't buy it from PPL or anybody else. That was grandfathered to at least 24 municipalities across the state of Pennsylvania when the electric deregulation came along. Okay, because of that, the borough's actual municipal taxes are low compared to other municipalities. I'm not sure what the millage is right now, but it's pretty low. The borough continued using East Penn rail lines up until 2013, when the Kutztown Foundry, who was their main customer for the railroad, went out of business. Well, they closed up. They really didn't go out of business, but they closed their operation. East Penn wasn't getting any freight anymore, so they wanted out. Now, I'm the actual chairman of the Kutztown Transportation Authority, which owns the rail line, and it was my responsibility to find a new operator if one could be had. And the fellas over in Topton who have at the other end of the line, they have a building where they restore rail cars. They have a business called Central Penn Rail Car. I asked them if they would be interested in having a railroad. Mike Bass, who you just spoke with down here, and Pete Culver are the principals that I dealt with, and they were interested. We negotiated a new operating agreement, and they took over the railroad. When they took it over, they named their new railroad, the original name of this railroad, the Allentown and Auburn Railroad. They were the first ones under that name to ever operate trains on the line. It was 160 some years later.
Wow.
And that's pretty much the brief history of the railroad.